Good morning. Boy, what a busy weekend this has been. And it started Thursday night with Mean Mary James at the Unity Center. We co-sponsored Mean Mary. Mean Mary plays a mean banjo. That's what that means. And she was phenomenal. We were just mesmerized by all her hand movements, picking banjos, guitars, playing violin. It's just amazing. So if you have a chance to check her out, she's a big star in Nashville. She just happened to, Kevin at Unity happened to catch her between Portland and San Francisco. And so she just said, okay, I'll stop by and do a few songs. And it was really great. Mean Mary James. Anyway, you can tell I was enthusiastic about it. But today is about strength and virtues. So I would like to ask the ladies here this morning a question. Based on the results of studies at the Mayo Clinic, if you could be taught a psychological process that would give you a 19% longer lifespan, would you be interested? No hands? 1, 2? Okay, good. For the gentlemen, based on studies done at Harvard, if you could be taught a mental defense process that would give you a 42% advantage in healthy aging long into your 70s, would you be interested? Yes, please. Well, the good news is that this is part of the incredible amount of research that's been going on since the 1960s, showing the power of positive thinking, positive feelings, positive experiences, positive principles, and it brings about greater physical and mental well-being in a longer life. That's the great news. But let's back up just a little bit, because at the beginning of the last century, 1901, at that time, psychologists were looking for answers of what was wrong with people. What was wrong with people who had mental illness? What was wrong with people who had depression? What was wrong with all the other problems people seemed to have? And over time, people got tired of the psychologists looking for what's wrong, and they wanted to know more about what's right. And I love this statement. They wanted to live a meaningful life, not just fidgeting until they die. Not just fidgeting, existing. They want a more meaningful life. And so for decades, psychologists have said, well, there's only this much range of change that we can make in people, whatever it is. But at the Mayo Clinic, Harvard, and the University of Pennsylvania, their incredible number of research projects began to show each of us has the power to experience an increase in our happiness, which also increases our mental and physical abilities and contributes to a longer lifespan. Now, in his book on authentic happiness, the leader in this research, Martin Seligman, he wrote that book. It's been in our bookstore. He's a professor of psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. He's also the director of the Positive Psychology Network. Check that out. He's the author of 20 books, and he's former president of the American Psychological Association. So he has a lot of credentials. So when he writes and has all his sources of knowledge and all the studies he's been part of, you really have to take it as hard evidence that this is true. Well, about 30 years ago, he and his colleagues began a project they called Positive Psychology Network. And they began with a process, and I found this very interesting. Just like Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind and Religious Science, Ernest Holmes did this in the 1920s, the 10s and 20s. Here we are, 60, 70 years later, and this group of psychologists decided to do what Holmes did, read the basic writings of all major religions and philosophical traditions, which included over 200 documents, including the works compiled over a time period of 3,000 years. They read the works of or about Aristotle, Plato, Aquinas, Confucius, Buddhist, Lao Tzu, the Old Testament, the Talmud, the Quran, the Upanishads, and so much more. But what the psychologists were looking for is, are there any threads of common virtues or standards of morality in these documents? But when Ernest Holmes was doing that, when he was reading all of those documents, he was searching to find truth. Are there any threads of truth that are common to all these documents? And the result for Holmes was writing the Science of Mind textbook. It was originally published in 1926. So here, 60, 70 years later, people are still looking. So the Positive Psychology Network was looking through all this to find standards of morality and threads of virtues. I pulled out one of the books about Dr. Holmes. I have 3 of them that talk about his life, and this one's open at the top, The Life of Ernest Holmes. In it, it says Holmes was a synthesizer of the works of others rather than a creator of a new philosophy. In fact, Holmes said, and I quote, "I didn't make it up. The thing that's original about us is we don't claim any originality." I thought that was so cute. We don't claim any originality. It's just the truths that have been out there for 3,000 years that he synthesized. He called it religious science, and that's why the textbook is The Science of Our Mind. He described religious science as this: the correlation of laws of science, opinions of philosophy, and revelations of religion applied to human needs and our aspirations, the aspirations of humankind. Not much dogma in there, is there? It's beautiful. In The Science of Mind, he attempted to bring these great truths in line with modern metaphysical knowledge, because science has been proving over this last century how right Holmes was. He said his approach was to make natural laws of the universe easy to use and down-to-earth everyday living. Now, I wouldn't say the Science of Mind text is that easy to read. It's better if it's read in a class. But that was his goal at the time, to make it usable in everyday living. For the psychologists, the Positive Psychology Network, what they found in almost every one of the documents, over 200 documents that they studied, they found 6 virtues: wisdom, courage, love, justice, temperance, and spirituality. These are the core characteristics that the wisest people throughout history believe makes good character. But the next question was for the psychologists, well, great, we know those words, but how do we measure it in people? How do we measure how people learn to be wise, to have courage, to be spiritual? How do we measure that? How do we measure how people grow? What is it that builds up in a person that leads to a character with wisdom, courage, love, and justice? Because you didn't come out of the womb with it. You had to learn it somewhere, or brought some of that with you into this life experience. Altogether, the psychologists call this the strengths of character. Through the strengths of our character, we achieve living a virtuous life. I was looking through Dr. Holmes' first edition of The Science of Mind. I have it at home, 1926. And he wrote about our personality, and I thought it was a really good thing to add to this talk. So I'm going to read it to you if you don't mind. Personality is a unique pattern of being created out of the sum total of all that we've done, all that we've said, felt, thought, hoped for, and believed in. It's the result of our reactions to events in our lives. Our reactions to events. Factors that contribute to the development of personality include our heredity, obviously, the environment we grew up in, human suggestions when other people think, oh, here's what you ought to think about or believe in. Our childhood training obviously had a big impact on our personality. Our formal education, everything that has made an impression on our consciousness has developed into our individual, unique personality. Holmes believed that all of us want to have dynamic personalities, but building them is like building a mental garden. The harvest in that garden depends on the seeds that we sow, the seeds that we plant. Holmes said there's some major components to consider that are common to the core characteristics emotional control, self-mastery, enthusiasm, having good manners, self-confidence, service, spirituality, and genuine compassion. That's quite a lot to learn in one lifetime, isn't it? That's quite a lot to learn. But then we're souls on this infinite journey, so we came in from other experiences, and we're continuing to accumulate strength upon strength upon strength. And it's likely the reason that you're here in this philosophy, in this center. Being in community, learning from one another, but also learning in classes. You're here to be in a positive community with like-minded people, to lift you up and help you grow. Holmes believed that the most important quality is love, which is the universal urge to express. Now, when we say the universal urge to express, mine fades a little bit. But the universal urge to express is also God, that universal urge. That's God, the creator of all. So why has God got an urge to express that is based on the energy of love? God's universal urge to express is love. Well, I think I answered that to myself yesterday at the Pride Festival. We had a wonderful booth filled with wonderful people from our congregation, and we gave away positive fortune cookies that one of our Pride congregants wrote the fortunes in them. And it was so happy, flags flying, music playing. It was just a beautiful experience. When I went back at 3 o'clock to pick up the tables and the canopy and all that stuff, everybody was ready for it, and they had it all loaded up in 5 minutes. It was really great. And then a reporter came up to me, and he said, "Could I interview you about this festival?" And I said, "Well, like what?" And he said, "Well, when did you come to Reading?" I said, "87. He said, "Well, has the community's attitude towards the LGBT community changed?" I said, "Oh, yeah. It really has, because Reading is traditionally a very conservative community, more fundamentalist in beliefs. But what I've seen over time is there's greater acceptance everywhere." I said, "Just take a look around you at this festival. The joy, the happiness, the singing, the colors, all the people participating." He said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a minister." I thought he might say interview's over, but he didn't. And he said, "Like where?" I said, "Center for Spiritual Living." He said, I said, "Well, you know what? We've always been inclusive because we believe in oneness. We're all here." And he said, "You know, I've been trying to get the Shasta County Interfaith Forum to do an interview with me." I said, "Well, I'm on that group." He said, "Oh, then I'm gonna haunt you until I get interviews with all those people." I thought, well, this is a good thing. I said, "You really need to talk to another person here," and it was Kristen Carr. Kristen and Christy are a wonderful couple, and they were helping pack up the booth and everything, and he interviewed Kristen, and he said, "Why is everybody so happy?" She said, "Because it's pure love." He said, "I even see children here that are happy." She said, "It's pure love. It's pure love and respect for each other and respect for the families. And that's what you're seeing here, and that's what we're about." It was just, one of those poignant moments. So yesterday we experienced universal love because God completely accepts us like we do here in this center. God's love is unconditional. God loves us just the way we are, even when we flub up, when we're finding our way. But incredible happiness is available to us at any time. It's an internal job. And when we radiate more of those characteristics of God and the cores and the values and the core characteristics, it's a natural result of that. So how's it going for you? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high. What are your experiences of love and harmony? How about wisdom? That's something we're really big into here. Really big into learning and growing. Well, these things are all things to consider, but I'm here to tell you that scientific research supports all of it. In Seligman's book, he's got study after study after study after study that proves these things out. And it's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to giving a class on Emma, our dear Emma Curtis Hopkins, because her MO is it's all good. It's all good because everyone's doing the best they can in every moment. So when people are in crisis or they feel the world's out of control and they ask me, courageous, I focus on the truth of what's really happening in order to help them shift their perspective. Shift their perspective. It's not that we take a Pollyanna perspective here, because it's important to have balance, to see that there is black and white, up and down, in and out. I'd like to share a few of these shifts in perspectives that have been proven scientifically through these documented studies, and I'm going to see if you agree. Here's the first one. Many studies done on this. Spending money on experiences provides a bigger boost in happiness than spending money on material possessions. Anybody agree? Not everyone. Interesting. Okay. Did you hear that? Spending money on experiences like this, or like the Pride Festival, provides a bigger boost in happiness than spending money on material possessions. And I think the people in the class I'm doing right now on Writing Down Your Soul believe that. They're spending money on the experience of learning to write in connection with the soul, communicating with the soul. And I know that because after class, we're all just flying high. We're feeling really, really good, and we feel really close to one another because we've shared our writings. So we've shifted our perspective. Here's another one that has a lot of research behind it. Gratitude is a big contributor to happiness. Cultivating gratitude generates more happiness. Do you agree? Oh, that's better. All right. Good. If you could see the faces on the many people that receive the gifts that you leave in the bins in the hallway, you would feel their gratitude. You would feel it. Because there's many smiles and sometimes laughing, singing, and dancing when a person who hasn't had a pair of shoes gets one. It just touches my heart, and I'm so grateful for you because of that. Here's another research study. Giving hugs or other physical affection creates an overall sense of well-being. Now, you might not be a hugger at Sunday services, and that's okay. But I'm sure when you get a hug from your child or your sister or your mother or your best friend, it does improve your well-being a notch. Do you agree? Yes. Almost everyone. Here's one. Volunteering our time creates an improvement in our well-being and may even reduce symptoms of depression. Do you agree? That's a good one. I find that often when people come to me and say, I don't feel loved, I don't feel like I'm part of everything, I don't feel happy, blah, blah, blah. I said, where do you volunteer? Oh, I don't. It's one of the keys. It's one of the keys. And I wanted to bring that to your attention because we have 17 volunteer programs here. So you could find there's something for everyone. And I know right now Damien would love more support in the sound team if you would love to be on that team. And I know Lori Snow would love more assistance to help the children's church teachers at the 10:30 service. So you could talk with them and find out if you're interested in that. There's always an opportunity here for you. Another study, spending money on other people results in greater happiness for the giver. Do you agree? Cool. I'm a receiver. No, I'm just joking. No, I have plenty of people to give to in my life. And, you know, all year long, I'm looking for things for family and friends. Wherever we go, we're going on a cruise next month, and I'm going to be looking to see what I might take home. And in my closet already, I have a wonderful pair of sheets for my brother back in Ohio, and a jacket and other things. And so every time I go into my closet, I see these things, and it just makes me smile because I know when he receives these things, he's going to be very appreciative. So it's a little lift me up, it just makes me feel good. So all of these things can make us happier in the present moment. But they also give our life more meaning when we look at our past and when we project our future. We can bring all of these things into action, into our activities that make for a much happier future, obviously. Well, I went on the website for this new group, and their latest theory, the Positive Psychology Network, the latest theory they describe as PERMA, P-E-R-M-A, where you build up a solid sense of well-being. And it is P, positive emotions, E, engaging in life, R, positive relationships, M, more meaning in life, and A, are accomplishments. If you feel tired already, just do one or two of them a week and get started if you need to move in that way, because I know in my life, it's so busy. And I look back and I was reading this and go, yep, I did have positive emotions, but then the other day I didn't. I'm engaging in life big time, have great relationships. I have really, wonderful meaning, because every time I think I want to do a different kind of thing, I go, no, Mary, what you're here for is spiritual education, helping people learn what you've learned in the power of God in their life. And accomplishments, plenty. And so we come to a definition of positive psychology, and it can't be confined to any dogma carved in stone, which is good. It's always subject to influences. It's always subject to creative ideas that you have or other people have. Our positive psychology is also subject to human needs, which change over time, and circumstances, which change over time. So let's go back to the question of a century ago. What's wrong with people? You still want to ask this sometimes, what were they thinking when they did whatever? When the real most important question in the last 40 years is what's right with people? What makes life worth living? So I urge you to continue to uncover and express that in your life. What are your strengths and virtues? Promote positive living, and then look back and see the results. Say, yay, God, thank you. So let's pray on that. My heart just opens up every time I say it's all one. There's only one thing going on here. The love of God that has created each one of us to find our own way back to the love, the true love, an expression of God. I accept that for myself and everyone here. That's really what we're here doing. And when we forget, we're here on Sundays and during the week to help you remember, to help all of us remember. Where we're living in integrity, where we're giving and receiving, where we're offering goodness, where we're offering friendship, where we're standing in integrity. All these things, every day, reminding us these are the paths to true happiness and well-being. So I know that for each one here or those hearing this message later this week, that it's a good thing to consider. Do I need more happiness? Of course. It's unlimited. And so I bless these words, I bless this talk, I bless you for being here. I give great thanks for the knowledge we've heard today from double-blind studies that so many psychologists and scientists have been doing over the past 40 years to help us understand it's true. The wisdom of Ernest Holmes, the wisdom that he synthesized in the 20s, is as true today as it ever was. So in that light and that expression of love, I give great thanks. And I let these words just flow into your life with joy and ease. And so it is. Thank you.